In the last 2 years, the US government has printed a scarcely believable $4.6 trillion. Quantitative easing, the only card they could play to combat the pandemic and keep the economy on its feet. The result? Rampant inflation, over 8%, leaving the Fed only one move: raise interest rates to reduce its balance sheet and curb rising prices. So now the doxy is pumping, Treasury Bonds are more attractive, and Bitcoin and tech stocks are heading down, taking the rest of crypto with it. But wait a second here. Wasn't Bitcoin meant to be the hedge? Wasn't it meant to be the answer to debasement of fiat currency? Well, that was, of course, the big story being trumpeted by Bitcoin's new institutional cheerleaders. I'm talking your boy Michael Saylor, Cathie Wood, and DJ Paul Tudor Jones. Big names, all convinced that Bitcoin is indeed a viable hedge against currency debasement. And if you're wondering about the size of that debasement, well, here's David Sachs of Craft Ventures talking to Pomp.
There is a huge risk of currency debasement when the government is in control, and particularly when you have the world's reserve currency. There's just such an enormous temptation to print money to finance your budget and to rack up loans that become unpayable. We're at like 130% of GDP now we owe. So we owe an amount of money greater than the size of our entire economy or our economic output. That sounds very hard to repay to me.
But here's the thing, in the light of the events of the last 10 days, I'm wondering, has the great meme of 2021 lost its sheen? Well, Michael Saylor remains defiant as ever. Bitcoin is a sturdy ship to ride the seas of fate, he says. And in this episode, we'll look at what hedging inflation traditionally looks like, the perplexing public persona of Nayib Bukele, and whether Saylor is in any danger of being margin called. Oh yes, and the unexpected arrival of one Nouriel Roubini, can you say Babel, with a tokenized solution to inflation all of his own. Oh yeah, this is the Defiant. So a quick primer for all of you non-economic students out there. Inflation is basically defined by the rate at which the value of a currency is falling and how much the general level of prices for goods and services is rising. If you print additional currency up the wazoo, this will devalue your currency. Usually this happens pretty slowly, but COVID took the rulebook and threw it firmly in the bin. Inflation is nothing new though, and nor is hedging against it. Traditionally, you move from bonds to stocks, real estate via REITs or saucier debt instruments like inflation-adjusted Treasury Bonds or TIPS. That was how you aim to outpace inflation. Still steady, but zesty enough to get the job done. Gold bugs, of course, evangelize heavy bars of hard-to-extract metal. And there's always silver if you can't afford gold, you pauper. But here's what Saylor has to say about all of that. MicroStrategy is the big dog. MicroStrategy is the big dog in town. MicroStrategy owns a staggering amount of Bitcoin. 129,218 coins in total. Bear in mind though that Satoshi himself is believed to have mined over 1 million Bitcoin. And that has a street value of $3.7 billion with a cost basis of $3.9 billion. And you don't have to be a math whiz to realize that Saylor and MicroStrategy are in a little bit of a red place. By comparison, Tesla owns 43,200 Bitcoin and is also down $240 million on that investment, all of which has prompted headlines that MicroStrategy might face a margin call on the $205 million loan it took out to finance the acquisition of a chunk of that corn. Were Bitcoin to slump to $21,000, then they would be at risk of a margin call. But CFO Fong Li did explain that actually they would be perfectly capable of just adding more Bitcoin collateral to the package. So in reality, there isn't much danger. Now you'll notice Saylor's laser eyes in his Twitter profile. Laser. That meme blew up last year as celebs and politicians and people who had no idea what they were talking about added glowing power eyes to their profiles, signaling their support for Bitcoin. If you saw hashtag laser ray till 100K, well, that was this. And until very recently, Nayib Bukele himself, the exuberant president of El Salvador, El Presidente, also sported laser eyes. But one eagle-eyed Twitter artist by the name of Crypto Whale, who probably isn't a whale, also removed any mention of Bitcoin from his profile, as well as removing his laser eyes. In response to the tweet, Nayib responded by, well, bringing the lasers back. But there is still no mention of Bitcoin in his profile. Bukele's bet on Bitcoin has divided his country, with many also troubled by the way his Twitter account seems to mirror those of crypto shitposters. And Nayib seems to have found a lovely friend in His Excellency Lord Justin of the 10th Planetary Foundation of Unoriginal Ideas.
Oh, friend! Oh, new friend! Oh, friend! Please be my friend! Oh, friend!
One day, Justin will come up with an idea all of his own, out of his own brain, and my brain will implode. Mark my words. But back to Nayib. There is in fact a hashtag for tracking his Bitcoin experiment, which is flashing all red for the young president's purchases to this point. And the country has also seen its credit rating progressively fall with a negative outlook. Fitch rates it CCC, which is basically junk. Not exactly great, with El País also reporting that the country is expected to default with an $800 million payment due in January, and still none of those fabled Bitcoin bonds to show, which were expected to raise around $1 billion for the country. Historically, Nayib, well, this is what he thinks about credit ratings agencies. Lol. Nonetheless, as exuberant millennials are prone to do, he's recently been welcoming countries to come and talk Bitcoin in El Salvador and been posting happy pictures of folks enjoying banquets and live cello music. Wow. One voice I did not expect to hear from during all of this, apart from dunking on Bitcoin and Bukele, was our old friend Nouriel Roubini, one of the staunchest and most vocal critics of cryptocurrencies, famously the man that predicted the housing crisis. Believe it or not, Roubini has actually announced his own hedge against inflation product, a subject he's once again been very, very, very vocal about. He is the co-founder and chief economist of Dubai-based investment firm Atlas Capital Team that also happens to have a blockchain arm. And he's helping with the rollout of a set of financial instruments to launch a security token, yes, I said token, that will act as a more resilient dollar. It is called the United Sovereign Governance Gold Optimized Dollar, or USG GOD.
Of course it's a good idea.
Responding to the war in Ukraine, Roubini actually wrote an opinion piece for The Guardian about the effects the conflict could have on the strength of the US dollar. He says, the weaponization of the US dollar, I really should do the accent, shouldn't I? But I think it would be doing a disservice. The weaponization of the US dollar, a central instrument in the enforcement of sanctions, is also stagflationary. Not only does it create severe friction in international trade in goods, services, commodities, and capital, it encourages US rivals to diversify their foreign exchange reserves away from dollar-denominated assets. Over time, that process could sharply weaken the dollar, thus making US imports more costly and feeding inflation, and lead to the creation of regional monetary systems, further balkanizing global trade and finance. And it's this that was the basis of the narrative behind USG GOD. So while he still considers crypto vaporware and a pus-ridden polyp on the anus of humanity, he might be softening on blockchain. Never thought I'd see the day. But anyway, let's see. So, after all that, where does that leave Bitcoin itself as a hedge against inflation? Is the idea valid? Well, the truth is, in the short term, no. But the same voices that criticize this space for being full of short-termist get-rich-quickers are also the swiftest to condemn theses that may well take a decade to be fully realized, just dunking on them for like, oh, you said that last year, now look at you. Now, we probably won't really know whether the Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation narrative truly makes sense till the 2030s, and there's a lot of road for us to get through before then. But I will leave you with one last thought, courtesy of Isabella Kaminska, host of The Blind Spot, who wrote an insightful piece recently about the UST debacle. In it, however, she proposes a different flavor of hedge thesis for Bitcoin, not against inflation, but against CBDCs and total government-controlled money linked to identity and social behavior. And if you think about CBDCs, there are so many slightly terrifying consequences to linking all of our information to the money that we own and what could possibly be done with that information. And as we front up to the reality that money really isn't at all what we thought it was and never will be again, we have to be especially vigilant not to allow governments to replace bad with even worse. Bitcoin, in fact, continues to function as intended. It's actually quite cheap to use Bitcoin right now. Wow. Now, it may be a slow, clumsy elephant of a network clustered around with intransigent maxis, but indeed, it does just keep trucking on. Much like this channel. So if you enjoy what we do, please consider subscribing. Have a great weekend. And that, my friends, is that. Have a good one. I'm going off to find a hedge. See ya. When you shop for plane tickets, you probably use Kayak, Expedia, or Google Flights. So why would you limit yourself to just one exchange when you trade crypto? To make sure you're getting the best possible price, you should use a DEX aggregator like Matcha. Matcha routes your orders across all the various DeFi exchanges on Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, BSC, Phantom, CeLo, and Optimism to provide the best possible prices without taking any commissions. Matcha has integrated fiat on-ramps so you can buy directly with your credit or debit card and uses smart order routing that splits your order across multiple liquidity sources. With Matcha, you can make limit orders on chain so you can set and forget your DeFi trades. And now Matcha even offers gasless trading. Head over to matcha.xyz/Defiant and connect your wallet to start smarter with Matcha. Step Finance is the front page of Solana. Crypto moves fast with hundreds of applications and new things launching daily. Keeping track of it all is a full-time job. Step brings everything into one easy-to-use dashboard. Step's portfolio management dashboard enables Solana users to visualize, analyze, execute, and aggregate transactions across all Solana contracts at the click of a button. Step is built by DeFi degenerates for DeFi degenerates. Get started today by visiting step.finance and connect your wallet today. DidX is the future of decentralized derivatives trading. The exchange is on a mission to build the world's leading crypto trading platform. To further this mission, the team is now developing the next version of the protocol, version 4. DidX v4, launching at the end of 2022, will be open source, fully decentralized, and entirely controlled by the community. To help power this next step, the community has launched a grants program with funding allocated to open source builders, contributors, and ecosystem integrations. Come help build the future of decentralized trading at DidX Grants.